Ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. We are today on Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube Live. If you would be so kind and put in comments that you can hear us and see us, that would be great. We have a very interesting team tonight, charisma.
Yes. A lot of people ask, okay, maybe you call it something different, right? Executive presence, charisma,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
likability. But so many people are interested in this topic, and we love it. If, by the way, for anyone who's joining, if you have other topics you want to hear us speak about, let us know. Put it into
Absolutely.
the chat, send us a message. We're always open to your
Yeah.
topics too.
It's always now the StreamYard is getting a little bit, more. Now it's it's like 1 minute and then people are getting, connected. I think the software is getting bigger and bigger, and then it's longer time to connect. So if you can put in the comment line that you can hear us and see us. We are on
We've got YouTube.
From Finland. We are on YouTube, definitely. I can check also on my phone. I can check. LinkedIn should be okay. Yep.
Good.
Yeah. And yeah, we are. We are on LinkedIn.
I've also gotten a very lovely comment about my hairstyle. I did cut off about, an American foot of hair in preparations for my trip to Asia. So thank you, Micha, that you noticed it. And he's regretting he's not single. I'm regretting I'm not single too.
I think I see that people are, coming. So I think we can start. So Lisa, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, we're here today to talk about charisma. And people often think of charisma as something that you're born with, right? So they look at you, Jan, they go, well, it was inevitable that you were going to be a superstar. You have the way that you show up. People want to listen to you. You're inspiring. They think you were born with that. And then they say, but me, I wasn't. Too bad. And in reality, charisma, likability, friendliness, executive presence, it's all learnable skills. Now, there are some traits that make it easier for some other people, and good for you if you've been born and raised that way. But even if you're sitting there out there and you're an engineer, you're a computer scientist, and you're thinking, no, you don't understand, Lisa, I'm that quiet introvert in the corner. I would say absolutely not. Jan and I have worked with many people, no matter what your background is, no matter what your starting point is, to be able to come through and really shine in your natural charisma. We're not teaching you how to fake anything. We're teaching you how to bring out that best version of yourself. So if that sounds good and you're in the right place, then stick around.
There is a message that they cannot hear us on LinkedIn. I will check it out. But it should be, Michael, it should be problem with the LinkedIn because no. Michael, this is the LinkedIn on my phone.
But Facebook maybe is the problem. So LinkedIn's working, but maybe Facebook.
But he's coming from the Facebook saying that we are not.
I see.
It happened in the past. Now it should be. It's okay. Now it should be okay. Anyway, so good. But good.
Good. Technical difficulties.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask you, Jan, what do you want to share about charisma? We all want to hear. How'd you get to be who you
are? Let's first talk what is charisma. Okay. And we probably should also mention the book from Olivia Fox-Cabane, the Charisma Myth, which I think is probably still one of the best books about charisma because she's demystifying charisma, if you will, right? But anyway, what is charisma? In my view, it's the ability of the person to inspire, influence, be, attractive for the people because, influencing is very important in your life because if you are a leader, and that doesn't need to be, leader in terms of the, job or work. It can be, home or maybe some, in some, out of the work activities, whatever. But if you want, in some areas of your life, people to follow you, it is not about a business card or whatever. It's about influencing people, and you can influence people by inspiration. People will believe in what you believe, and then they will follow you. Leaders are not defined by the business card. I used to have a nice business cards. I mean, German, Europe, Microsoft Corporation, that was a good one. But anyway, you are not defined by that. You are defined by the people who will follow you. Okay. And then a lot of people think I can't be charismatic if I'm introvert. It's illusion. Olivia Fox-Caben was a huge introvert. She's still very good, presenter. And I mean, if you watch some of her presentations on YouTube, she's very charismatic, right? So it is not about that. It is not about talent. It's a skill, right? And we can talk about some of the pillars of the charisma. First of all, I'll mention and I'll ask Lisa what kind of the charismatic people you met in your life. But probably in my life, I met one is now British king, Prince. At that time was a Prince Charles. I really felt very good in his presence, and it was like, hey, I felt like now I am the most important person, in his life in that, present moment, right? That's how I felt really good. And the same with Tony Blair. I met Tony Blair when he was no more prime minister in UK, but he was still, to me, he's one of the best public, speakers, Tony Blair in the world, right? Very charismatic. I have heard that probably the most charismatic politician was Bill Clinton, but I never met Bill Clinton, right? So, but that's what I've heard. So Lisa, what would be what? That's interesting because what I would say about women, I met more charismatic women in business as opposed into the politics or I don't know, the kings or the queens or whatever, right? I met a couple of, and both in like Czech Republic and internationally, right? So, how about you? What is your experience with charismatic people?
Yes, I would say this is, I'm going to date myself here, but back when I was studying at university and I went to with Democratic National Convention at the time, which is where they, say who's going to be the Democratic nominee for the presidency.
Right.
And I went there and, at the beginning, you're in a huge stadium, right? And there's a lot of speakers who come on beforehand. And the earlier you are in the agenda, the least important that you are, right? So we're early on in the agenda. Everybody, nobody's even paying attention. We're all just chatting with our friends. We're all looking around. People are getting snacks, whatever they're doing. All of a sudden, someone comes onto the stage and starts talking. And all of a sudden, you see the crowd is listening and they're saying, shh. And then by the time we're 5 minutes into the speech, it's dead silence. And we're hearing the speech. This guy is speaking with so much energy, so much enthusiasm, so much motivation and inspiration that I turned to my friend at the end and I said, this guy is going to be the future of the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And the guy was Barack Obama. Okay. And he was a nothing nobody at the time. That's why I say I don't want to date myself. But he was nothing. He was a senator from Illinois. He had failed in some of his previous stuff. It was his first term. He was known by zero people. I don't even know how he got the spot, but I'm telling you, and that was this breakout speech. That was when people said, oh, this Obama is something. And that's actually the very pinpointed start when he started his way to the presidency. But he came from nothing. Nobody expected a thing from him. He was not there to be the big spectacle. Nobody was paying attention. But the way that he could speak, he could draw us in, he could say these inspirational, motivational things in a way that, everybody's trying to be inspirational. But the way he could get it literally made a stadium silence. You could hear the pin drop. And that for me, I was like, what is that? How do you do that? It was the first time I ever realized how important charisma would be to getting your message out. Because it's not about that he walked in and said, I'm great, I'm a celebrity. Yeah. It's that he got us feeling a shared hope, a shared community, a shared sense of movability. It wasn't just we like him. We were moved by him. That's charisma.
Absolutely. No, I think Obama is definitely charismatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk now about three pillars from the book? And
Yeah.
because I think it's a good way have at least
I
structure
love
this.
it as a basis. Yeah.
Those three are presence, power, and warmth. So let's start with presence, because presence to me it's about to be fully engaged in interaction, right? It is about the body posture, it's about eye contact, handshaking. You will be surprised. I probably did handshake with say 32 to 35 prime ministers of the countries, and half of them they didn't have a good handshake, or the presidents, right? It was Prince Charles, it was like some the his hand was very like rough, like somebody working all the time in the garden, or
He loves to
really
garden, so
very,
yeah.
very firm handshake and very good eye contact. I mean, I was really and a good physiology, good body. But this is it, because if you want to be charismatic, it is really paying attention to the other people so they feel good. Charisma is about you, but it's also about people around you, right? Because it is about influencing. Because if you will do, oh, okay, and you will still work on your phone, right? It is good if we talk about the present. It's good if the other person is speaking to nod your head from time to time, but not like that all the time. It means that the other, and I met a lot of people who's doing that, which means like they are not giving a shit to what I'm saying, no, really.
Yeah,
So
yep,
yeah,
great.
you can from time to time rephrase what the person is saying. It's also good, So if, for example, if I understand you correctly, this is what you know what I mean, right? Those
Yeah.
are the hacks, together. So, but I think the presence to be like it is about being in the present moment, because at the end of the day, charisma is about your performance. Be here and now, and not like in the past or in the future. Pay full attention, be empathical, listen. And even if you speak, because then if you are here and now and you speak with the other person, the chances are that you will be able to influence them. Otherwise there's no way.
Yes. And with presence, where people get the most hung up. So we all know, oh, be present, don't think about the past or the future. We know the concept of it, but most people have a very difficult time applying it. And most of the time, when you're speaking in front of an audience, or you're at a networking event, or you're in a place where you're trying to be charismatic, the reason that you can't be present is because you're thinking about yourself. How do I
Exactly.
look? What do they think? Do they
Or
like me?
about something different. You are like 10 minutes ahead of the discussion,
Oh,
That's
yeah. How am I going to get them
yeah,
here? What are this? How do I land the sale here? And you are so obsessed in your head with yourself. What am I going to say that's clever? I hear this a lot. Like, oh, I need to say this like funny, smart,
yeah,
cool
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You're so in yourself that you're not possibly present with the other person. And I know this sounds counterintuitive for most people when they think presence is learnable and they think, okay, tell me how to be charismatic. And the answer is let go of trying to be charismatic and just be with the other person. It's your job to look at them and listen to them and be curious about them and to just be there, like making them feel special and important. When you can do that and you get out of, did I say the right thing? Was that stupid? Was that smart? Is this clever? Have I done this? Will I get to this? Oh, did I meet the right person? Let me check the room for someone else. Just be there. And if it's a 30-second conversation and then you say, hey, it was so great to see you, I'm going to run and get a glass of water, and you excuse yourself, but those 30 seconds you were in it. That's all you need to do is get over yourself, get out of your head and make the moment about the other person and be present with them in their moment.
Yeah. And there is another thing which is somehow between the presence and the power. And that's kind of the distance between, me and the other person. I tell you what, I think uh, I speak loud, and I think I have some impact on people. But some people, some feedback I've got, they said it. You are like wind, like like the storm. Right? So I really I started to pay attention that the distance, that I should not be like half meter or what. You know what I mean, right? On the other hand, it is, you need to test it simply. But that's another quite important thing, because especially if you speak loud and you think you have a lot of energy, for some people it's good, and for some people it's over. You can be overwhelmed. They can be overwhelmed by the energy. Right?
Yes. And by the way, for people who are quite tall and you're speaking to someone who's quite short, sometimes you're too close and then you're kind of bending over and like leaning on top of, and that can be quite intimidating because you're
Yeah,
using your body up close and bending
absolutely.
over them. So take a little bit more distance if that's what you need. And then also, I've heard this from ladies. Sorry, I haven't heard it much from men, but sometimes people get in a little too close for your comfort and you want to have a little bit of space back, but you don't want to necessarily be rude if it's political or in business. And so all you can do is slowly move one foot a little bit back. So you're sort of, your legs are a little bit spread apart. And then you lean back a little bit on your back foot, and then you can close your front foot to your back foot. And that way you haven't taken a step back, but you sort of casually leaned your way into a position that you're slightly farther back. And these are the very small body postures that you can do without offending someone, but making sure you're at the right distance, where, as Jan said, this is also tied to power. If someone's very tall standing over you and they're intimidating you, you want to make sure that you're standing up and you're having a presence, that you're
Yeah.
meeting their power.
Now, what with the, if I'm taller, I mean, if I'm like 2 centimeters is nothing. But if I'm taller than the other person, what I do usually, I put my leg like that, so I'm shorter. You know what I mean, right?
Yes, thanks. I
It's
appreciate that. I'm always the shortest one around, so.
it is a small thing, but I want other person to feel comfortable. There is a one point I wanted to make about that. By the way, a little bit, promo, because there'll be biography of Bill Gates, I think, coming out this week or the next week, whatever. And it's from his childhood, when before Microsoft, right? They wanted me to comment on the size. I will comment on the second part when he will write about Microsoft. I will not comment on this one. Anyway, Bill Gates, you will meet 15% of the people are so-called kinetical, people. So they would go like, back and forth, whether they are sitting or staying. And now, if we talk about influencing, right? If you were in the room with Bill Gates, like 7, 10 people, Bill started to do this. After 10 minutes, everybody was going, back and forth. No kidding, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And why I'm saying that, because we have so-called mirror neurons. So we are mirroring other, people, right? And yeah, so it is quite interesting. I give you on the presence. I give you another example. Tony Robbins talks about the state that you need to be here and now you need to be in the right state, and he talks about physiology, that you need to set up your body. He talks about focus. Where focus goes, energy follows. And he talks about vocabulary and the words, because the words are creating emotions, and emotions are connected to the hormones, and it's both about you and about the other person. I mean we are putting charisma really on the high level, but charisma cannot replace hard work. Okay. I remember when I was coaching beauty queens like 10 years ago, right? For 3 years I used to coach like the winners, 3 winners from Czech Republic, to prepare them for the international competition. I was telling them, charisma cannot replace hard work, simply easy as it is. You need to
no,
be hard and be charismatic. That's great, right? Because you can influence people. So
exactly.
that's the presence. And the presence today, unfortunately, people are paying less and less attention to the other people, and it's like it's very transactional. And I've never seen anybody who was charismatic to be transactional, right? Those people are usually like interested in what you are, doing, and building the connections and stuff like that. On the presence, for example, what I do when I can't do it if there are like 1,000 people in the room. But if I do those seminars, 15, 20 people, they are usually introducing themselves. They are saying from which, city they are or town or whatever. And I always try to build the bridges. If I know somebody from the, you know what I mean, right? It's helping so much, right? It's a small thing, but it's helping to build, trust, basically. Trust is in charisma the key thing to me.
Yeah, and that overlaps with how you build warmth with people, right? So warmth is sort of a funny word here, but warmth is really about, let me go back. When you think about power, first we want to know, do you have power or not? And then we say, okay, but are you going to use your power to help me, or are you going to use your power to hurt me? And warmth tells people, I'm using the power to help you. So I have power, but I'm going to protect you, or I'm going to use it for you. Come in and be a part of my, in tribe. And that warmth, we have things in common. We have, a lot, we share things. Oh, I'm smiling when you're talking. I'm making you feel safe. We have some trust together. Absolutely. That warmth is what helps people to feel comfortable with you, even though you're powerful, because they feel safe. You're going to use that power to help them.
Absolutely. Well, Lisa said one important thing. Charisma is a tool, right? It is like a knife. Knife you can use to cut the bread, or you can kill somebody. Well, why I'm saying that? Because Hitler was also very charismatic. That guy was influencing the, millions of the people in a very bad way, obviously. He was a, war criminal, right? But this is it, right? But he studied, there is a now movie on YouTube. He studied all gestures and everything, right?
He was an actor.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, that's the story. Anyway, you mentioned already the power. Power doesn't mean that you fight with the other people, but it's about confidence and competence. Okay. I will explain it, right? You have people who are very competent, but they don't have enough confidence. So they cannot sell themselves in a proper way. Okay. Then you have people who are overconfident and they are not yet or not at all competent. And I think the first group of the people, they are underselling. The second group, they are overselling. Okay. Then you have people who are not confident and not competent. They need to work on this. And ideally, confidence and competence should go hand in hand. And confidence is about, how you self-awareness, how you understand who you are as a person, and how you are able to basically cope with the past, what happened in the past, right? Because when we are small kids, babies, we are quite confident. When we learn to walk, we are quite confident because people mainly, if you think about myelin is basically wrapped around the synapses. And more myelins you have, better for you, because myelins are enabling faster communication among the neurons, more accurate, and the signal is very strong. Okay. So the child is quite, confident because the child is like learning from the mistakes. Hey, I did some, mistake. I stand up and I, learn, because our brain is equipped. Like if you make some mistake, neuroadrenaline is created, like the peak, saying, hey, this is something you should avoid in the future, because your brain first cares about survival and then everything else. Okay. So survival is a key priority. That's why highlighting what was the error, what was the mistake. Okay. Then pseudocolin, which is imagine the light. The light will, shine on, for example, there will be some stuff, and the child will, fell down, right? the pseudo would say, hey, this is the reason why you failed. Okay. And then if I will say, okay, fine, then now I know what to do in the future, what happened, right? Basically dopamine is saying, hey, you learned something, that's good, so dopamine will say, because this reward hormone say that's good, but dopamine will inspire you to continue in that activity. That's what the kids are doing. They are, this is the reason why they learn fast and why they are quite, confident, and they are also, for the age, obviously they are quite competent, right? uh, on the power, what I will show you something, right? Imagine that I will try to influence you, okay? And I'll be like speaker. I will go like that. I have a vision. I will, move you, and you will be in better place, and just follow me. People, I
I
mean,
love
no,
you
and I
so.
they'll be pissed off. They will not believe you. And you, because once you put your shoulders down, your head down, there's no eye contact. Cortisol is released because it's the body language which is basically coded in our brain for thousands of years. That this is like, hey, there is I'm losing, right? If you will go like, hey, I have a vision, and if you follow me, there'll be better place. I will, lead you, right? So if you put your shoulders, up, there's a good eye contact. It's a very different, right? And what they figure out at Harvard, that if you stay like that for 120 seconds, your level of testosterone goes up by 20%, stress goes down by 25%, cortisol, and your ability to do some action goes up by one third. So the body is a key for, be charismatic, right? So it's really, I mean, and if watch people, if you go by in subway or whatever on the street, watch people and watch their, bodies, and how they, what is the facial expression, and so on, and ask yourself, is that person, charismatic or not? This is the reason why not that many people are charismatic, and you can learn, but unfortunately, we are not teaching those things at all, not in the business and not in the schools.
Nope. And so many interesting things I want to say here, but I think it's really great at the beginning of Olivia Fox Cabani's book about charisma. She starts talking about Marilyn Monroe, and Marilyn Monroe is riding in a
Right.
train, I think it was, and she just kind of comes in. She has the low body posture. She kind of has, stuff covered in a handkerchief, and she just doesn't like exude confidence, and nobody recognizes her. And then when she arrives at her destination, she kind of is like, okay, here's Marilyn. And then she walks out and she has the body posture and the voice and the cuteness and the tone and the eye contact and the looks. And then she's Marilyn. And that's why we say everything about what we're talking about is learnable. It's not like, there are times when I'm like, ooh, I don't want to be noticed. And I literally just shut it off and nobody notices me. And then there are times when I walk into a room and I say, I want to be noticed. And I'm like, hey, 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 hey. And I'm like living like I own the place. I'm the same person. So it's all about, body, how you show up. And what's so important here as we start talking about power is part of how you hold your body, part of how you put your energy out. Do you have like an alpha energy where you're like, hey, I feel perfectly comfortable here. I belong here at the table, like that. Or are you going, ooh, do people like me? Is it okay? Do I have your permission? Does
Mm.
someone want to
Yeah.
talk to me? Because we are still animals. When it comes to power, we're still going to look for who is on top. So again, body posture. It doesn't even have to be words, but body posture, the way you walk in. Now, one thing it's so important for me to share about power, I would say if you ask me what's the number one book that I gift to leaders and I say, you've got to read this book, it's a book called The 7 Rules of Power. It's by Jeffrey Pfeffer. He's a professor at Stanford and he teaches power. And he literally says, look, I'm a social scientist. Power works the way it works. As Jan said, it's like a knife. It can be a tool that's used for great.
Absolutely.
It can be a tool that's used for terror. But It's my job as a scientist to study it and to bring to you the facts, because power works the way it works. Now, the problem is that lots of people say, oh, I don't feel comfortable with power. Power is evil. Power is greedy. Power is selfish. Power is wrong. We have so many feelings about power that most people don't feel comfortable having power, asserting power. Now, that means the people who are left being comfortable with having power and asserting power are often the jerks. And then that reinforces, you see, the people who have power are jerks. So I want to encourage everybody here who's listening, if there's one thing you take away, step up in your power. Get 10% more powerful. If it's the way you walk, if it's the way you talk, if it's the way you assert yourself in a meeting. There are 7 rules, so literally you can study how to be more powerful. And I think number 1 is, probably there's a reason it's his number 1 rule, is the most important in the starting process, which is get out of your own way. Most people, when they say, I don't have power, they go, oh, I walk into a room, but I'm the person who's youngest here. I'm female. I don't have a PhD. And so they know more, or they deserve the raise, or I don't know, because you talk to yourself like you're not worthy, you're not good enough. You focus on the things where you haven't done enough. As Jan pointed out, we all pay attention to where, there's potential disasters, where things have gone wrong, where mistakes have been. We focus there. But equally true could be you brought in the most revenues in the last year. You have a track record for, high performing teams. You have a whatever MBA from a prestigious. So, you can believe either one. Both are true. But we focus on the ones that keep us small instead of really focusing on what are the ones that build us up and make us big. This is the very first step on building your power, building your charisma, is believing in the good parts of yourself and wanting to put them out there. So many people shy away from putting themselves out there because they don't want the judgment. Well, if you actually believe in yourself and you say, no, I have these really good attributes, I have something to say, my voice is important, I want to share something, then you're willing to get into the spotlight. That's where charisma with your body, with your voice, with your message will start to come through. When you're too shy to talk about charisma, it's often because you're protecting yourself. You don't want to be judged. You don't want to be in the spotlight where people can say bad things or hurt you. So I will come back to the same message I said again and again. Get over yourself. Stop focusing on your ego and how you look and are you great. It's not about you. Charisma is really about the others, the message you're bringing, the power that you're going to use to make good impact in the world.
Yeah. You mentioned the power. There is a story where I think I use my, courage and my confidence in front of the Bill Gates. Here is the situation, okay? There were a couple of people in the room. There was my boss. She was, leading public sector worldwide, and I was leading public sector Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And they had an argument with Bill Gates. Bill Gates, the situation was that, there was a prime minister of Macedonia supposed to come and sign some, agreement, whatever. And Bill Gates, he was not, coming for some reason. And Bill Gates was not very happy. And then he was saying, which Macedonia, Greek Macedonia or Macedonia? And she didn't know, because there was a, fight over the name between Greece and Macedonia, because this is about Philip Macedonian history. Now it is like, they solved the issue. Yeah, they solved the issue. But at that time, it must be like, what? Bill Gates is gone since 2009. So it is probably like 16 years. Anyway, okay. So I went to the room. I stand up, and I really felt like, hey, I am the guy who can solve the situation and put everybody would feel good. I said, Bill, listen. Okay, I got attention. Yeah. I said, the only country which recognized the name Macedonia is United States. All other countries are calling that country former Republic of Macedonia, of Yugoslavia, whatever. That was the name at that time. And Bill absolutely cooled down. He was like very, anxious before. He cooled down, and that was it. And I believe that it was not only my message, what I said, but it was also my body, because I felt like I am now. He's obviously all the time number one in the room, but now I am the number one in the room. And you need to take responsibility to use your power. And sometimes it's not, very easy, but you just need to do it. This is it. If you feel, hey, I'm the guy who can, help to solve the issue.
Exactly. Same thing when I walk into the room and I'm talking to billionaire CEOs. And, I say this because I want you all to imagine the scariest person you can imagine, right? We're talking Bill Gates, we're talking CEOs, billionaires, royalty, whomever you can imagine that you go, I really don't want to mess up. And they have so much authority and so much power and so much knowledge. And I want each one of you who are listening to be able to walk into a room and say, yes, they have a lot of good knowledge, information, wisdom. What do I bring to this table? Because I also bring something. And if you're 20 years old and you're listening and you go, what? I don't know. I didn't even finish my university studies. Then you bring youth and wisdom and new concepts and new ideas. You're a digital native. You bring something. Please don't ever forget, when you walk into any room, you have something valuable that they don't have, which is your perspective.
Exactly. It is
And
always,
own
look,
that.
if you are in the room, chances are you deserve to be in the room. You know what I mean, right? So,
and if not, act like you belong in the room.
exactly,
And eventually, honestly, I walk up to people at networking events. I always walk up to the speaker's table. I walk up to the most important people, and I just walk up like, of course I should be there. And they always turn their head and go, who is this? But she must belong there because she's here. And so they talk to me like I'm,
there is a one advice, guys. If you let's say you are at a conference and there are some really top speakers, if you want to talk to them or take a photo or exchange some opinions, get them before the speech, because after the speech, everybody goes there, right? Yes. But before the speech, you can, go there and have a, conversation, right? Because I remember the conversation with Prince Charles was really interesting, because he, was talking about what Bill Gates is doing in Africa, because it's close to, and in how software can help in agriculture and stuff like that. So you should not underestimate yourself, because you can always bring something new on the table, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, this is a stupid question, I should not ask it. Come on, I was always, whenever I was at some conference, I was speaker also at those conferences, but I was always sitting row number one. And if there were like all ministers or all commissioners, so they said you should be in the row two, I was row two, but I was always asking a lot of questions. This is the way how to get. I mean, you get trained and you get attraction. Absolutely, right?
Yes, but people don't have the courage to do this. I want to reiterate, for those of you who are listening and like, yeah, that makes so much sense, I could do that. Then you're going to walk into a conference and you're not going to do it. Why? You need to have the courage to say, I have something worth saying. I am worth taking up space. Yeah. I have a perspective. I belong here. I show up in every room like I belong, whether I belong or not. And I'm telling you, just by the way of walking in, owning it, acting normal, acting like you belong, people will absolutely recognize like this is legitimate authority somehow. And then you really do belong. So don't wait until you have permission. You've got to walk in and start owning it first. And that's one of the rules of the 7 rules of power, is break the rules. I'm American, so I'm very good at this. But it's like, if you're playing in a game, I'm not talking about a sports game, but like if you're playing in a game where the rules are set up for you to be excluded or fail or to not get the promotion, then why are you playing that game? You're set up to lose. Why don't you find out a different way for you to play the game so that you're set up to win? So break the traditional rules, not hurting anybody in the process, but don't always feel confined. I have to do it the right way. I have to do it the way that it's been laid out. But my boss said it, so it must be true. I want you to start owning and feeling your power. I can walk into a room and I can say this. I can ask this question. I can ask to be on a stage. I can ask to speak at this event, and start really showing up as though you have something to say. And then that reinforces people trust you, and then you can feel it. Sometimes you have to take the courageous step before you get the validation.
Yeah. No, the power is important not only for charisma, but in general. Okay. Last example, I have a tennis player. He was at the Australian Open, and they won with his counterpart from United States. They won the doubles, and so they have a Masters. They have a championship, right? And those guys, they were like in two matches, returning couple of match balls and stuff like that. But they always were like walking because I said, Jan, he's like almost 2 meters. His colleague from US, he was not that tall. But anyway, I said, guys, you should, walk like a lions all the time. Whatever is happening at the court, always like a lion, right? So this is important because you can't, walk as a lion and feel like small bird or whatever. That's impossible, right? Anyway, the third pillar is warmth, right? So I will tell you, in my view, and I think I mentioned it here, the happiest people are those who can make other people happy through some activity they love. And it is basically, we have two basic needs when we are born. Number one, we want to be authentic. We want our genes to be freely expressed. But unfortunately, other people try to change it, whatever. So genes hey, this is kind of, my meaning. This is what I should do. And then obviously, because we are social beings, it's emotional connection to the other people. So our brain, guys, is wired to help other people, to be empathic, to care about the other people, right? But unfortunately, very often society is saying those guys are, uh, for vaccine, those are anti-vaccinators, not good, right? We will for 10 years, we will be very rude to Novak Djokovic in Australia because he was not vaccinated, right? Stupid. so
Yes.
so this is it, the warmth. I mean, the connection with the other people is very important. They even, I think in the book, she wrote about the fact that if you give somebody warm coffee or soup or whatever, the people are getting like more open than if they are getting the cold drink or
I
just
didn't
part.
remember that, but that's funny.
I think it is like that.
Yeah, and warmth is so important because I often give this tip when people ask, what's your best networking tip? I'm going to go to a new networking event, or I'm going to meet new people, I'm going to go to a job interview, whatever it is. I've got to meet somebody I don't know. How do I break the ice? What's like the topic I should talk about?
Right.
And I say, look, when you're going in, just act like you've already been friends with the person for 6 months. 6 months means you're not telling them your deepest, darkest secrets. They don't have to know about, your childhood nightmares about, I don't know, whatever. But 6 months means you have a level of
Even
comfort where
though,
you
even though I told you before the we started that I have a piece of apple in my mouth, but we
exactly.
but we know each other for more than 6 months.
But it's exactly, Jan, it's so good. Let me tell you. I said, when I came on and Jan and I were working in the background, he's like, hold on, I just ate an apple. I got it in my teeth, right? And he's like, I got a Listerine. I have to fix it. That's what I mean. That level of, feeling authentic, sharing your true self. Real life is a little bit messy, but it's not devastating. It's not like, oh, she's going to run to the newspaper tabloids with this information, right?
Right.
That's the level that I say you should engage in every relationship. And yes, even formal business events, treat them like we're already friends. We have a level of familiarity or comfort with each other. Again, not super best friends type close, but there are times when, for example, in my sweater, I have buttons in the back. Sometimes I have buttons on my clothes and I'm like, oh, I can't quite get it. Hey, would you mind getting a button for me? Right? That feels weird. And at the same time, if someone buttons my shirt, they already feel like we're friends. So that awkward, like, how was your chicken dinner today? Oh, look at the weather. You just bypass all of it. And what happens is they feel connected to you, they like you, and you have better, deeper conversations. So it's actually more interesting. Then it's easier to stay present.
Yeah, and I think you are spot on. Charismatic people are good in networking, easy as it is, right? So I mean, and look, I'm not empathic on like first, look or whatever. I am a relator in Strengths Finder, I think number 8. Relator means that I need to know people a little bit more to get, empathical, right? But that's fine, because usually if you go to some event, 2, 3 people already, and they will it's a networking effect, and then more and more, right? So that's great. And now if you I mean, we call it social networks, but there is really not social. Wait, there is probably, look, I have, for example, Instagram. Okay, I have like 50,000 people there, and which is great, and I do like live and so on. But real like connection, which means like we've seen each other at some time, whatever, it's probably like 1,000, right? The other probably was like online. It's great. Don't take me wrong, but I think this kind of face to face, at least from time to time, it's really helpful.
Exactly. There are different levels of connection, right?
Yeah.
And we really want to get to a deeper level of connection because that's where true trust is. And one of the easiest ways that you can really portray warmth to people and get them feeling good and get them feeling connected is finding things that you have in common, but not like, hey, we're both coaches. Hey, we're both women. Hey, we both live in Switzerland. These are like very obvious sort of things that you could say, okay, yeah, we have it in common, but who cares? But they actually know from the research that if you find that you have in common, this is a crazy one, you guys. If someone showed you an ink blot diagram, and they just said, how do you interpret this to look like? Is this a frog? Is this a clown?
Right.
Is this right? And they give you 4 options. If you and someone else both say, I think it looks like a clown, then you guys like each other at a deeper level because you all of a sudden go, they get me. They see the world the way I do.
Absolutely.
They think the
Yeah.
way I think. It's not like, hey, we're both women in Switzerland. It's like something deeper inside. We have a shared reality or a shared experience of how we view life.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so go ahead.
No, you go for it.
Now, let's talk a little bit what we know from science, from some studies, right? So number one, mirror neurons are playing key role because charismatic people are usually mimicked by the other people because of the mirror neuron. This is it, right? So you are, because of the mirror neurons, if you are charismatic, unconsciously people are mimicking, doing similar gestures and stuff like that. It's not like copying, but this is it. And I think I mean, look, I'm not scientist, right? But I know that I love to listen podcasts, but I learn much more if I see the other person on the screen. And I think it has to do with the mirror neurons. I try not to mimic anybody, try to be still me, but I think I'm influenced by some people for sure, if you are right. But this is it, how you learn from the best. But I think it is a key. And you, especially if you are a leader, you need to realize that people are really watching every step, every gesture, everything what you do. Simply, I give you one example when I really screwed up, right? I wanted to make big joke. There was like all leadership team from my region and some other people, and I said, because it was after the presentation, and I said, well, we were talking today all the time about the P&Ls, profit and losses, statements, right? I think in my family, I do a lot of profits, and my wife is taking care of and I met like she is buying stuff and so on. Yeah. But they have heard like I said that my wife is loser. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was bad. And then I apologized. I said, guys, I screwed it up. Sorry. And I really paid much more attention what I was, saying, or the gestures I was doing. It was not that bad, but you know what I mean, right?
Yes,
That's what you said, because we view the world like every human being got a little bit different paradigm, right? And I thought like, okay, I'm making, my money, I'm making the money, and she's investing into the economies. But they thought, hey, L means like losses, so she is a loser, right? No bad.
For the
I,
record, Jan, I understood what you were saying.
I told her, and it cost me, nice bag, right? It's like $1,000 back
You
or
called me a
whatever.
loser at work. But I
Absolutely.
think
Anyway,
I feel like what you're saying, this is exactly the point that we need to make about influencing and charisma. We're talking all about charisma and power and how to show up strong, because the point is that you want to influence people.
yeah,
But the reality is, influence, yes, you can be coercive, you can force people, you can be their boss and say, or else, right? But when we're talking about charismatic influence, where you're trying to inspire and motivate and uplift, in the end, I really want you to remember, people don't change because of you. They change because of them. What's important to them. If they're inspired by you, then something shifted in them, and now you've become their role
there
model,
needs
or
to
you've
be
put a
some
vision.
common denominator. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
But they're not changing for you. They're changing for them. So you really have to remember, focus on them. What's in it for them? What is it relevant for them? You don't have to be singing and dancing and telling great jokes and putting on a show. That's a performance.
Right.
Charisma is really about seeing the other people, getting them excited, helping them to see their future in that shared vision, shared reality that you could have together. And that's when they're motivated to move. And it's that simple.
There is another piece of studies about emotions being contagious. Basically, you as a leader or charismatic person, you influencing the energy in the room or in the organization and so on, positive or negative. And as the same with the like football coaches or whatever. Really, because of those mirror neurons, uh, it is contagious. And then now you can ask me how it can be. Well, if I will explain you, okay, if the boss is pissed off like 100% of the time, right, and like radiating really, negative energy, the chances are that people will be under the pressure. There'll be a lot of cortisol, which means they'll be unhappy. They will not be engaged. Gallup talks about, you know engage people, not engage, and negatively disengage, which means like
Yeah,
that they are destroying organization, right? So if you
there's a
wanted
lot
to
of them.
people, if you wanted to have a people engage, means there needs to be positive energy. It doesn't mean that everything is rosy and you should hide the truth or whatever. No, but we are, learning. We are like winning and losing. We are one team. We are winning and losing together, simply, right? This is it. So, on the other hand, if the boss, even though there's a tough situation on the market, and maybe we need to do some layoffs, whatever, right? But if the boss is positive, that creates, like endorphin, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, in terms of the, trust. And then, people are not only successful, they like what they do, but they are also healthier, right? Because sometimes, look, sometimes if the organization is laying off the people, it can happen. It can happen everywhere. It even happened in my 22 years once in Microsoft. But we have always good packages for the people. We have like replacement agencies working with the people and stuff like that, so that nobody was really saying, hey, this is bad thing. Everybody was like, okay, we understand it was during the crisis in 2008, right? So, and I think even in those moments, charismatic leaders play key role in the tough moments. It's like, you know you think that Churchill, he was barely walking, but he was very charismatic. For some reason he was able to smoke like a chimney and drink a lot of whiskey up to 90 years old or whatever. just, but he was a smart guy. That guy was and very charismatic. I was a tough because at that time there was no TV. So he in fact broadcasted through the radio, his
Exactly.
charisma, and people believe him absolutely.
Exactly. So I have one thing before I start wrapping up. Roman wrote to us on LinkedIn, what is important? And maybe you can share a little bit more details in that question because we'd
What
be
do you
happy to
mean?
answer it.
Yeah. What, Roman, if you can put what do you mean in what important, like in the charisma or in leadership, or what do you mean? Where is important?
Exactly. And then while Roman's taking care of that question, what I want to add here is you want to ask the question. When I'm being charismatic, when I'm being
Yeah.
influential, I walk into a room, I say, how do I want people to feel? As we've talked about, the emotions are catching. I'm the leader. I need to be responsible for creating the atmosphere of how people want to feel. And most of the time, they really want to feel seen, heard, and understood. So while you're thinking, I need to impress them, I need to give them a vision, sometimes they just need you to walk into the room and say, this is a tough situation. We're really going through a tough time right now. And so they want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. You understand it. You're not saying, hey, everything's great. It's no problem. And we'll just dust it right under the rug. We see you. This is hard, you guys. You've been working hard and still our quarterly profits aren't there. That sucks. And then the charismatic, influential leader sees, hears, understands, makes people feel seen, and then brings them to the future, brings them to a new possibility and a new vision. And that is how you get people seen so their emotions feel acknowledged, not stuck and spiraling in the emotions because you're moving them forward. This is why people will say, oh, that leader really got us somewhere. Hey, it was really tough times, but we all pulled together because they were seen and understood first and pulled into forward
Okay.
movement.
So, Roman, well, I would start with, meaning in your life. Meaning is a huge, engine in our lives. Okay. And people, what I know, and I work with a lot of people, some people who won Olympic Games, Bill Gates at that time when we were working together, he was the richest person in the world. So really those kind of the people. So those people who are not only successful, but also happy, they have three things in common: high level of self-awareness, so they understand who they are. That's very important. Okay, if you understand who you are, you can understand what you want from your life. Okay, what is the meaning? Okay, all right, that's the second point. And the third point, those people are able to use who they are to achieve what they want in their life, right? This is it. Because I can't, like if you would tell me, Jan, if you will draw some nice picture, I will pay you 1 million US dollars. I will not be able to do that because I don't have a talent for drawing, and my drawings are the same like when I was 60 years, and now I'm 63 years. Okay. So that's kind of, Lisa, you wanted to add something on that?
No, I just was going to add that your drawings were probably the right kindergarten age, but you got there.
Oh, okay. You can start how to use charisma to sell yourself for Michal Konstatsky.
Yeah,
I will add. Yeah.
okay, I think charisma absolutely is about influencing people. What you're describing when you want to sell yourself is more, I don't like to call it selling. I call it personal branding,
Okay.
because I look at it as this is an opportunity for people to know about what I can offer. It's not, I need people to think Lisa's great. But I happen to have read all these books. I have a bunch of knowledge. They can be helpful to you. So I'm selling myself in the sense that I want to let you know, hey, I'm a coach who's read all this stuff and I can help you because I'm presenting actually opportunities to you. Most of the time, people feel uncomfortable selling themselves because they feel it's an ego thing. I'm selling myself for myself. I need to look good. And that is like, I'm not humble and I'm so arrogant. And I want to keep reiterating, this is not about you. This is about what you're going to offer to the team. What's the opportunity you're going to share with other people? And they have to know that you can offer it in order to be able to take advantage of what it is that you're given. So don't think of it as selling yourself, but really as you're giving them an opportunity to solve a problem that they have, and the solution happens to involve you. And constantly putting yourself out there, saying the names of who other people have trusted, to work with you, how you've been able to bring results. All of that is just in the process of bringing forward your vision or bringing forward your purpose. So if you get over yourself, then you are able much better to talk about yourself in a very positive, powerful, but sort of neutral way. It's really in service to them.
Yeah. So, Michal, I will use the example when I was presenting in front of the Microsoft leadership team, people like Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, Craig Mundy, and so on. Okay. So I got up in the morning, I ran for 30 minutes, maybe, 1 hour to get really energy, because for me, energy is a key. Okay. Then I always wear more or less the same, shirt. It was a polo, Ralph Lauren, right? To feel good, simply, right? And in front of them, whether I was sitting or staying, I was like, firm, very good eye contact. Try from the beginning to involve them so they feel we are part of the region or we are part of the process and so on. To really and to basically resonate this energy, right? And be really like very authentic. And plus, also Bill Gates, for example, my boss, my immediate boss was 15 years, Jean-Philippe Courtois, who was recently Microsoft president, right? And when Bill Gates talked to him, he said, if I have like 1 hour with Jan, he talks 5 minutes about successes, 55 minutes about where we need to improve. And that's me, right? That's me. So those are like a couple of things. And this is pretty much, at that time, I didn't know about presence, power, and warmth, obviously. But it is a framework, You need to have energy. You need to be in the present moment. You need to be concentrated, good eye contact, and make sure they are like part of that. I always felt like, even now, if I speak somewhere, I go there a little bit earlier and I visualize like, hey, there's 2,000 people and it's like my family, and they are all, like we are all at the same boat. That's in the nutshell what can be done. Yeah.
That's it. I love it. My last parting words for everybody. Believe in yourself, trust in yourself, what you want to deliver to the world so much that you get over having to prove yourself, and you can get busy with the process of actually changing the world and actually giving your message out and actually, being that change you want to see. So get over yourself. Trust.
Perfect. Okay. Guys, thank you very much for being with us, and see you
Take care,
soon.
everyone.
Bye-bye.